that the Stanley Cup Finals have concluded, we can resume our NHL offseason plan series. Today we're looking at the 18th ranked team from the NHL's regular season and the Stanley Cup finalist runner-up, the Montreal Canadiens. What should we expect from them? We'll discuss that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, in case you're new to this series, we're almost complete. We've completed videos for 29 of our 31 NHL teams. We're down to only the 2 teams who played in the Stanley Cup Final in this series. So the other 29 videos are posted to the channel. They are in a playlist as well. So I highly recommend you check that out if you haven't caught the other videos. But today we're going to take a look at the regular season performance and stats of the Montreal Canadiens, discuss their playoff run. We're going to take a look at their cap space, who they have coming up for restricted and unrestricted free agent contracts to deal with, and the top 5 burning questions facing the franchise as they head into the offseason. So let's get started here with their regular season and playoff stat review. Now, first up, as you can see, the Montreal Canadiens didn't have the best regular season, finishing with a 24, 21, and 11 record for 59 points, got into 4th place in the North Division to get into the playoffs. As I mentioned, they were the 18th ranked team throughout the NHL's regular season, so they certainly had their fair share of ups and downs throughout the regular year. They had a -9 goal differential throughout the regular season as well. Not often you see too many teams with negative goal differentials get along into the playoffs, let alone go all the way to the finals like this. Certainly a bit of a Cinderella run, something that many of us did not expect, even though many of the Habs players, coaches, GM, etc. all said they expected to be there. I think they probably even did surprise themselves even a little bit, if I do want to speak the truth on that. Now, when it comes to special teams, they didn't have the greatest in the regular season, but in the playoffs they stepped up. The power play in the regular season was decent, but not fantastic. 19.2% for 17th best. It actually dipped a little bit in the playoffs at 18.9%. And the PK, which was 23rd best in the regular season at 78.5, was an absolutely huge part of their playoff success, where they killed off so many penalties and had a 91.8% success rate. And you could say that the guys that worked the PK were a huge part of them getting all the way to the finals, where they ended up finally losing to the Lightning in quest for their Stanley Cup. Now, heading into this offseason, the Habs have $14.67 million available in salary cap space, but they do have a lot of UFAs that they need to re-sign or consider replacing, so that money will not go far. They are going to have some tough decisions to make. The other big thing I want to make note of here as well is that Marc Bergevin and the Habs still have 11 picks in this 2021 NHL Draft. They did move some picks to make some acquisitions at the deadline. They were so well stocked on picks that they can afford to do that, but they still have more than extra left here for the current draft. So we'll see how they put those to use, and we could still see a busy Marc Bergevin this offseason. Even though he's been super busy to get them to this point, he still has a lot of work to do in terms of contracts. So let's now take a look at their upcoming RFA and UFA contracts, decide who we think is going to come back, and then we'll look at the 5 burning questions. Now, looking at the RFAs first, we've got Artturi Lehkonen and Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Now, of course, both those players had their roles on this team. They were not always both regulars, but I do think there's a pretty good chance that the Montreal Canadiens will want to bring both back. Kotkaniemi is a given. Lehkonen, I think, is maybe a little bit less uncertain, but still pretty good chance he gets qualified and re-signed. But the RFA, however, the UFA list, though, is much longer and contains a lot of important veterans that really played a big role in helping them get all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals here. We have Corey Perry, who was a absolutely huge signing. Even though he didn't play all the time in the regular season, as the season went on, his role got bigger. He played a huge role in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and that leadership and that veteran presence it was absolutely monstrous for Montreal. 2nd straight year for him being in the Stanley Cup Finals, and unfortunately coming up short. He does have 1 Stanley Cup to his name, though, from the 07 run with the Anaheim Ducks when he was very early in his career. Of course, you get Yoel Armia, who's a UFA as well. He's also had a pretty good role with the Habs the last couple of years. Philip Deneau, who was an absolutely huge defensive center for Montreal, only scored 1 goal, didn't get a ton of points, but he played a major role in shutting down a lot of the other team's top offensive players. So that's going to be a tough decision there. You get Eric Stahl, who didn't have a great start. I know a lot of fans were happy to see the move, and then they were very unhappy with how he played. But come playoff time, I think he was pretty good. Hard to say what his future holds, though. Tomas Tatar became a spare part into the playoffs. He didn't really see a whole lot of action at all. Doubtful he returns. You got John Merrill and Eric Gustafsson, who were acquired as basically insurance pieces on the blue line. Both, I think it's fair to say, at least in my opinion, played more than I expected them to. At the end, it was Kulak and Romanov going back in, but I was surprised, I must say, at how much ice time Merrill and Gustafsson got ahead of those guys, and it's doubtful that either player returns. I don't really see them fitting into their long-term future plans. Before we jump into the 5 burning questions here facing the Montreal Canadiens this offseason, I do want to take a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Exter Smart. Hockey's proud to be sponsored by Exter. Forbes calls Exter the most successful smart wallet brand in the world. They certainly have high-quality products, high-grade leather. You can put all your cards in your wallet with RFID protection, and you can track it worldwide. That's the best part. You don't have to worry about losing your wallet and not being able to track it down. They have a great selection of products to choose from here, a variety of colors and styles, something to surely help for everyone. As you can see in the demonstration here for the product I have, this is a beautiful packaging, high quality. When you open it up, you get a high quality wallet with lots of slots for your cards. You have yourself a money clip if you want to carry cash on you here as well. And certainly, as you can see, the quality is outstanding. And here you can see the switch where you can help open up your cards. You just one little click and boom, everything fans out right in front of you. Easy to access. Your cards are protected. And here's the back where you have yet another slot. A terrific overall product, and I can't recommend these enough. Exter ships worldwide, and you can check out the link down below in the description as well as the pinned comment to buy yours today. Thank you very much for watching that promotional video. I greatly appreciate it. Now jumping into the top 5 burning questions facing the Habs this offseason. Number 1, which should be an easy answer here, is will the interim tag come off of head coach Dominic Ducharme? Will he become the full-time permanent head coach of the Montreal Canadiens? And the easy answer is absolutely he will. There's no way a team is going to go make a coaching change and they're going all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals and then saying, yeah, you know what, you're not good enough, we're going in a new direction. I don't see that being the case at all. I do think that Luke Richardson, who had to step in for Ducharme over a period of time because of COVID reasons, he ended up on COVID protocol. He did a fantastic job too, and I wouldn't be completely shocked if Richardson might be lured away, but at this point, as I record this, all head coaching vacancies have been filled now, so he probably doesn't leave for next year, but I can see that when the next vacancies do come up over the course of the next year, there's going to be a lot of teams probably going to want to talk to Luke Richardson, and I think he will get a head coaching opportunity sooner than later. But right now, Ducharme, to me, he likely stays. I don't have any doubts at all that Bergevin is going to take off the interim tag and likely give him a bit of an extension. I don't know exactly where his contract sits right now, but likely that we'll see him at the helm for at least a few more years. Burning question number 2 is what do they do with forward Jonathan Drouin? Now, Drouin basically took a leave of absence from the team for personal reasons. We don't really know a lot about it. There's a lot of speculation that he was dealing with mental health issues, but we don't really know that for certain. Obviously, he still has 2 years left at $5.5 million, so he's a big part of the team that's on the sidelines, and it's not really clear if they can put him on LTIR. Can they move him? What's the status going to be for expansion? There's a lot of question marks around Drouin. I don't really know if the team knows. I think they're going to seek clarity before we get too much further into the offseason now that their season's over. But I kind of half wondered if he needs a fresh start, and maybe just the pressure of playing in Montreal might have been a large part of what was going on. Obviously, he's French-Canadian. Obviously, he came over in a big trade for Sergachev. And certainly that deal has probably worked out better for Tampa than it has for Montreal right now. I mean, I think Drouin's had his moments when he's done well, but hasn't really quite lived up to the hype, unfortunately. But it doesn't mean he's a bad hockey player. I think he has a lot of talent. He just needs to get into the right situation to probably excel, or at least be a better player more consistently, at least, than what he previously has been. So I think a fresh start is in order. Wouldn't be shocked if they do talk to the Seattle Kraken to see if there is interest. I think he's quite likely going to be exposed in that draft. And then if not, if they don't want to take him, then they might seek a trade in that regard. Or, like I said, I don't know what the future holds. There really hasn't been a whole lot of talk about Drouin in some time. So we'll have to see. But certainly his status is a big thing for Bergevin and the Habs to get figured out this offseason. Now, burning question number 3 is how do they handle the expansion draft? Even though Montreal's season just came to an end here, I am sure that the GM and his staff have been working behind the scenes especially on off days, looking at how to handle this, because it's coming up quick for teams that are just finishing up their seasons. The teams who missed the playoffs that were out early have had a lot more time to, kind of ignore the playoffs and focus on the other stuff here for the offseason. But it's coming up fast here. We're less than 2 weeks away, and they have a couple of options. They can go with a 7-3-1 format and protect 7 forwards, 3 defensemen, and a goalie, or they can go with 8 skaters and a goalie. Now, to me, I think it's a possibility, and a decent one at that the Habs will go with 8 skaters, mainly because they relied so heavily on the top 4D to get them through their playoff run. I mean, obviously, Weber and Petrie likely going nowhere. They'll be protected for sure. But if they do only protect 3, they have to choose between Sherratt and Edmondson, and the other would be exposed, and I would think there'd be a decent chance they could be snagged by the Seattle Kraken. Now, of course, in goal, there's no doubt about it. It's Carey Price. He has a no-move clause anyway, but there wouldn't really be a difference there. So Jake Allen will be exposed, and he was big for Montreal this year. Even though he didn't play in the playoffs, Carey Price played all the minutes, but you know what? There was plenty of time during the regular season when Price was injured and out, and Jake had to carry the ball and did a great job to help get them into the playoffs. And he deserves a lot of credit too. So I do think he'll be one of the goalies on the radar of the Kraken. No guarantees that he gets snagged, but still another interesting option. And if they do go with the 8 skaters, that means they only protect 4 forwards. Now, protecting 4 forwards has to be Brendan Gallagher with a no-move clause. He would be protected anyway. And then you've got Toffoli and Anderson would no doubt be on that list. And then your number 4 guy pretty much has to be Jesperi Kotkaniemi. You're not going to give up on the number 3 pick in the draft from a few years ago already and make him available in expansion here. So those are your 4 guys. So you're going to turn around and expose some players like a Paul Byron, like a Jake Evans. And Jake Evans really was a trusted player for Ducharme. So that poses issues. Like Montreal's in a predicament here that Seattle has a lot of good choices. Also on the blue line too to think about, not just Sherratt and Evanson, but even a guy like Brett Kulak could be, somebody they consider too. So there's a lot of options there. I don't know which way they go. Will they be one of the teams that makes a side deal with Seattle? Probably not. I'm going to say that they probably just have to, suck it up and take their losses here because they're going to lose a decent player. There's no point in really going, and losing additional young assets or draft picks, but they do have the draft currency that could entice Seattle to take one over another. But at the end of the day, it's going to hurt a little bit because they're either losing a decent forward or they're losing a decent defenseman or a decent goalie. So I don't know which way they go. I think they go 4-4 and go with 8 skaters myself. I think they'd be more inclined to want to lose either Byron or Evans as opposed to Sherratt or Edmondson, considering how important those D-men were in the playoffs. But that's just my opinion. We'll ultimately have to see here in the near future what they decide to do. But no matter how they shake it, they're in a position to lose a decent player here. Burning question number 4 is which of the veteran guys do they bring back that are on expiring deals? I mean, they signed Corey Perry to a 1-year contract. They brought in Eric Stahl on an expiring contract. Those 2 guys, I don't know about Eric Stahl. I have my doubts he returns. Perry, I think they would have a ton of interest, and they should do everything they can to get him re-signed. And they might have to give him a little bit more money than he got last time. But I think he was an important enough piece that he showed he can still play, especially when playoffs come around. The guy's a warrior, so to me, you try to keep Perry for sure. Now, when it comes to Stahl, like I said, maybe, but it's doubtful. I think that there's a good chance that he moves on. But if they lose a guy like Jake Evans, for example, in expansion, they might be a little bit less deep at the center position, and they might want to bring him back on a cheaper contract if he'll agree to it. But we really don't know what Eric Stahl feels about the future. Of course, there's Armia. I think they'll try to keep Armia. There's Philip Deneau as well, another big piece at the center position. Like, that's going to be huge. I mean, ultimately, Deneau, a lot of people feel like he played himself into a nice contract given how well he played in the playoffs. But you got to remember, it's the offensive players that do get paid the bigger bucks here. It was rumored that he was offered a contract of, I think it was 5 to 6 years, around $5 million, and he had previously declined that. Some feel he might get between 5 and 6. I'm not sure, but they certainly showed here that Deneau's a very important piece and could be a great mentor for their younger centers as well, like Kotkaniemi and Suzuki. I think they do what they can to keep him within reason, but I do think, unfortunately, that Deneau might have priced himself out of Montreal. Only time will tell. It depends on what he's willing to take, but I think Bergevin will do what he can to keep him. It's just going to be really tough to do. Another veteran like Tomas Tatar, though, I feel is pretty much all but a given that he leaves via free agency. He became a spare part for them. I don't see them showing any real desire to re-sign him. And burning question number 5 is what's missing? What do they need to have a better chance to win the Stanley Cup next year? Like I said, a lot of times teams get very confident. We made it to the finals. We're one of the league's top teams. We can do this again. And you know what? Not to say that they can't, but it's even harder to get back there than it was to get there the first time and try to stay there. It's not easy. Do you see teams losing in the finals multiple years in a row, or losing in the finals and then winning the next year? Like, a lot of teams have made it to the finals on a Cinderella run and then not made it back anytime recently. Like, it does happen. So it's not to say that they won't be a good team, but you have to look at it and say, okay, obviously Tampa was better than us. They won the cup, but why did it happen? Like, what is missing here? And if you go through it here, they have great goaltending with Price and Allen. That tandem may or may not be back together. Their D was by far their biggest strength. They have a lot of great forwards to really be happy about. But like I said, with all the contracts they have, you have to wonder how different the team will look next year. And I would say that if anything, they could maybe use another scorer. Like, they have some good scoring wingers. I mean, we'll have a whole year of Caulfield, which will make a difference too. Suzuki's continuing to grow. He's only getting better. So, I'm not sure. Maybe they find that answer internally, but they need more consistent scoring. Guys like Danault and Gallagher, for the amount of money they make, it's great that they played so well defensively and were so hard to play against. However, you need some more offense out of those guys. If you look at a lot of the other top teams that have guys who can play shutdown, they also produce more on the offense, and those guys need to be able to do that. Now, I know in Gallagher's case, he was banged up and probably playing through a ton of injuries. Like, the guy you could tell how beaten up he was by the end of the playoffs, but Danault didn't look to be too bad. Not aware of anything he was really dealing with, and as good as he is defensively, you just can't afford to sink that much money into him if he's not going to give you the points to go with it. So it's kind of a trade-off, and I'm not sure what direction they go in. But to me, a little bit more offense would have been nice because their defense and goaltending was pretty well there all the way. Could have Carey Price played a little better in the final? Sure, he could have, but you know what? If it wouldn't have been how well he played throughout the rest of the playoffs, they wouldn't have gotten there. So you can't really blame that on him. A few more goals, and they would have stand a much better chance to win. At the end of the day, Tampa was just better, deeper, and just, there's no passers on that team. Like, that team is so deep, it's ridiculous. Might be one of the best teams in the Cap era, so they have nothing to be ashamed of. But to me, they can add another game-breaking type of scorer if they have that ability, then certainly something they need to consider. Like, if Danault doesn't return and they have to replace him through another center iceman, somebody who can bring more offense would be well, but then they're losing on the defensive side. So it's a lot of tough choices. As I said, I'm not sure what Bergevin does. This team likely does look at least a little bit different next year, but we'll see just what they can bring and if they can continue off the success they had in this year's playoff run. So let me know what your thoughts are and what you expect from Montreal this offseason. Obviously, a lot of tough choices, a lot of interesting contracts to be considered. So give me your thoughts in the comments and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news and rumors on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.